surfing is never as good as it is in those first months. It's when you don't know any better and you truly believe it's all about how fun it is. I spent those first months flailing around in the messy whitewash of waves, wearing surf attire I now understand to be the red flag of a novice or a kook, and having the most fun I've ever had. The most vivid memory I have of my first waves is tripping out on the view of the ocean floor flying beneath me. Rainbow cobblestones slightly distorted by the sinewy water, pushing me along and running next to me at the same time, benignly carrying me to shore, the entire ocean licking my toes along the way. During those first months, I was just so proud of myself for being able to ride a wave, and the smell of salt water early in the morning was still foreign and exciting. I swear it's never that good again. I was super scared when I first paddled out at Malibu Surfrider Beach in Los Angeles when I was 13 years old. The waves there almost looked unnatural next to the messy, wishy-washy waves I had learned how to get to my feet in. The waves at Surfrider break like a typewriter is typing them out perfectly in reverse, peeling down the beach from right to left. Instead of being raw mounds of water heaving themselves in exhaustion upon the sand, they are poised and tailor-fit for surfing, moving in eerie perfection. They almost seem like intelligent, sentient beings, completing their purposeful journey across the ocean for a ceremonious dance with the land dwellers, and people come from all over the world to surf them. As far as waves go, Surfrider is Beyonce famous. "Those are real waves," a woman in my surf class had said the year before. That comment and my pubescent insecurity was enough to keep me going back to that beach every single weekend. I wanted so badly to be a real surfer who surfed real waves. I had no actual hobbies going for me at the time, and I honestly think it was the imagery on Roxy brand clothing tags in the late 1990s that made me decide that surfing would be my thing. Any lonely young girl with braces and glasses would want to transform into a skinny tan model with tons of friends who surf waves in hula skirts and grass hats. I didn't know any surfers at the time, so becoming one seemed like the perfect edge to set me apart in the competitive middle school social scene. Lucky for me, I picked a really rewarding identity to assume. Floating in the ocean and intuitively learning how to read its rhythms and riddles proved to be a pretty great way to spend a Saturday afternoon. You can't put into words how to describe a wave when it's ready to be caught. It's like a visual language that's hardwired into each of us that we can only remember if we try. Every weekend, my ever-so-supportive mother camped out on the beach with a pack of cigarettes and a camera, a Washingtonian transplant pleased with her offspring's quintessentially California new hobby. Surfrider Beach is a naturally curved amphitheater with a stage jam-packed of performers fighting for their chance in the spotlight, gracefully battling for the opportunity to get a dance to themselves and show the sandy spectators what they're made of. After a few months of coming to that same beach every weekend, the popular kids revealed themselves. They were a group of men and boys who always sat in the same patch of sand right next to the bathrooms. It was the furthest you could possibly sit away from the water and still be on the beach, slightly raised above the rest of the strand for the best godly view of all that was happening on the water and sand. The men were in their 40s and 50s with leathery dad bodies, though many of them weren't married and had no children. The boys that sat with them were around my age and didn't belong to any of the men. They were ocean orphans, whose true parents were of the sort who felt comfortable letting their 12-year-olds hang out with drunk men on the beach every weekend. Together, the group's boisterous omnipresence claimed the beach as theirs, attempting to make any innocent from the valley very aware that they were just visitors on somebody else's stretch of coast. To the casual beachgoer, it was just the part of the beach next to the bathrooms where old men usually sat. But for any surfer who came to that beach too often, it was the pit. There's a pit at a number of beaches that were part of the surfing boom in the 1960s. It's where the best surfers or most dedicated fans sit to catcall anyone who walks by, sneak a case of beer, heckle someone on a wave, or just be a gallery of salted peanuts in general. It's the cool kid table in the cafeteria. "Hey, honey, you need help carrying that cooler?" They hollered at a single woman walking towards the water. "Hey, better not take your sandals off." They laughed as a father with full hands flung sand everywhere with his sandals as he walked down the beach. "Oh, look at that one," a young woman heard as she walked by, and right when she glanced up to scowl at whichever chauvinist asshole, she saw that their eyes were actually set on the horizon, watching the next set of waves roll through. While the older occupants of the pit weren't anything special out in the water, watching the kids surf was inspiring. I would be out there, more often than not, in a tunnel of fear and frustration, trying to figure out how to get my body to move in the right way to get me into the waves at the correct time, how to angle my board in just the right direction to slot me into the cylindrical waves how everyone else did it, and how to get my feet underneath me in time before my board crashed into the bottom of the wave. But the pit kids played in the waves so casually, flying up to their feet and soaring so fast. They made it look so easy, like it wasn't the dozens of steps I was breaking it up into. Point my board at the white house on the hill, paddle 5 times while staring at the front of my board, wait 2 seconds, do a push-up, stick my butt in the air, shimmy my left foot under my chest, then my right under my hips, shift my weight from side to side to try to get my board going down the wave, bend my knees, arms out. They looked like they were just playing in a swimming pool, splashing around, laughing with their friends, moving as fluidly as the waves beneath them, and surfing better than almost everyone out there. Their timeless ploy worked on me. Sun-bronzed cockiness and glee, the briny mean-heartedness veiled in the context of an idyllic coastal setting. This was their beach, and I wanted it to be our beach so badly. It all existed and was right there in front of me for the taking if they'd just let me. It took almost a full year of me being a regular face in the water before I started getting a few nuggets of recognition from the pit crew. I got a nickname. Apparently, the surfboard I had begged my parents to buy me belonged to one of the younger members of the crew named Xander. I became ZWB, Xander with boobs. It sounds like it could almost be endearing, like Xander is a cool guy and his coolness might transfer to me because I am him with boobs and everybody loves those. I started to hear Z-dub get bellowed by man and boy alike when I walked onto the beach. The first day it happened to me that I understood that they were talking to me, that I was Z-dub, I followed my very only child-esque instinct of walking over there and introducing myself. Without an unsure thought in my mind, I smiled and made my way in their direction. I felt like they were finally calling me over to them after all these months. I took a few steps in their direction before the whole crowd started cackling, laughing hard at me and my stupidity. The young ones dramatically rolled in the sand, while the men gripped their beer guts and doubled over. Before they could see the embarrassment fled my face, I turned away quickly like a startled duckling and scampered back behind my mother, who was making her way to the water's edge. These weren't crusty drug addict men. These were full-time job-holding homeowners. Some of the kids went to private school. These were seemingly legitimate human beings taking pleasure in tormenting a young girl, and I hovered near them in the pit like a miserable stray wolf skulking around the peripheries of a campfire praying for scraps. When I was first learning, despite the social intentions that got me into the water in the first place, surfing was just about the physical sensations that come with riding on top of a naturally occurring orb of energy and how awesome that is. After a childhood of Doritos and Nintendo, learning how to surf was the first time I really felt what it meant to be a human animal in the natural world. But being at Surfrider made surfing about being cool and being accepted by this specific group of people who consistently enforced the fact that they were better than me, maybe even in ways that extended off the sand. I improved at surfing not to improve my craft, but to try to get these shitheads to be nice to me so I could sit with them and make fun of other people. From what I was seeing, that was part of the whole gig of being a real surfer. More than once, I picked up my board that was resting on the stone wall by the parking lot to find that the deck, where you stand when you're surfing, was covered in slick baby oil or sunscreen, making it impossible to stay on top of my board. I sheepishly carried it to the water and scrubbed it off with wet sand while they all watched. I was humiliated. Another time, I was paddling out, and one of the younger ones, who was around my age, was surfing a wave. He saw me and he smiled. I had a brief moment of, ooh, maybe he likes me. He turned his board in my direction. He gave up the wave to head into the whitewash behind him and beelined it straight for me. Then he ran me the fuck over, laughing his ass off the entire time. I ducked underwater and shoved my board between us. When I emerged with huge eyes and a shocked expression that was still trying desperately to feign a smile, he laughed even harder and paddled away, smiling to himself, so proud that he had just enforced the unspoken rules of surfing. One day, I saw them all wearing t-shirts for some surf club. Naturally, I popped our AOL CD-ROM into the family computer to do some searching and learn more about my tormentors. I found the Malibu Surfing Association blog. Since I knew my nickname, it didn't take me long to find posts that included it. It didn't take me long after that to surmise that they had begun calling my mom Smokestack C-word, a clever pun relating the word cunt with something that is near the ocean, both of which smoking. That surfer, Bethany Hamilton, had just gotten her arm bitten off by a shark in Hawaii, and there were blogs joking about overhearing my mom asking how I could get my arm bitten off too so I could be a famous surfer too. There were blogs recounting my trips to the beach, waves I caught that I didn't deserve, and accusations of me saying terrible things about someone's daughter who I didn't know. And we weren't the only ones. There were all sorts of conversations about dozens of beachgoers with cryptic nicknames. This is surfing localism. You hear stories of fights breaking out back in the day, rival surf gangs throwing rocks from cliffs or piers, or people breaking each other's boards or cutting their leashes like that scene in Point Break. Maybe that still happens somewhere more intense, but at a longboard surfing beach in Los Angeles County, it's grown men trash talking about preteen girls on the internet. I was addicted to surfing in two senses. I couldn't keep myself from riding waves or wanting to be accepted by some of the best surfers on the beach. And I made the mistake of thinking that their acceptance would mean something about my surfing ability. It wasn't until I moved to San Diego for college, after a mere 15 years of surfing beneath the wrath of the pit crew, and started surfing beaches that weren't world-class waves and where no one knew me, that surfing became reminiscent to the glee it used to be, before I got stuck at Surfrider on my quest to be a real surfer. San Diego is a land where almost everyone has a surfboard in their garage and transforms into a dude bro every summer. It's hard to be an elitist in a city where everyone is a fair weather shredder, and even harder to be a local in a city filled with transplants, and I love it. When I visit Malibu nowadays, even if the clingers-on of the early 2000s pit crew aren't still there to still ignore me after all these years and steal my waves, their gossiping ghosts still haunt me. Anytime I fall on a wave there, I cringe thinking about who saw it, and I never feel too safe leaving my board unattended.
That was Patricia Dwyer